Welcome dear scholars, here I am Dr. Amjad Ali. In this video I will explain the thesis pattern for undergraduate, MPhil and PhD students in social and management sciences. This pattern has been prepared by the QEC of University of Lahore under the guideline of HEC of Pakistan for all institutions who are awarding degree in social and management sciences. This video has its journal benefits, but it is more useful for social and management sciences students for University of Lahore. First we have a front page. In front page we have a title of the thesis with font size 18 to 22, and up you have to provide the title of the thesis with uppercase and bold, and then you provide the name of the scholar or the name of the student in a block letters. You can say that the uppercase with the font size 16 with a single space, and you don't mention the title of scholar like Miss, Mrs. or Mrs. Like Doctor. Here you provide the registration of the student, and then you have to provide the university logo or the department logo. And here is the supervisor name of the student who is supervising the student, and if you have a co-supervisor, then you also have to mention the name of the co-supervisor. Then you provide the name of the department and then the faculty name. Like if you are getting the degree under the faculty of social sciences, under the faculty of management sciences, you have to provide here. And at the end of this page you have to provide the name of the university, and then at end you have to provide the year, in which year you are completing your degree. This is the front page structure which is given for the social and management sciences students. And then in the second page we have the author declaration. You have to mention here your title of the thesis, and you have to give the statement that you are submitting this thesis for the particular this degree, and you don't have submitted this thesis for getting any degree in country or in the world. And if you found guilty or getting another degree with this thesis, then this degree will be cancelled out, and you have to provide your official name, month and year when you have to provide this declaration. And then here we have the plagiarism undertaking. In the plagiarism undertaking you have to provide the title of the thesis and the HEC rules and regulations, and if you found guilty in the plagiarism, then your thesis will be cancelled out. Like that type of things are given in undertaking. And after the undertaking of the plagiarism, you have to provide a next page, the front page of the plagiarism report, where you have how much plagiarism of your whole thesis. And after plagiarism report you have to provide a econometric procedure letter. In this particular form you have to give the help of some econometric expert who will certify that all of your econometrical procedures have been done accordingly. So there are no, you can say that no manipulations has been done in econometric procedure. So here the econometric experts have provided his signature and designations and date when he or she check your econometric procedure. And next page we have a supervisory committee. Here your supervisor name, co-supervisor name, members, HOD and your dean, and all the information has been given in this page. Okay, here we have a certificate of approval. All the approving bodies information has been provided here in this certificate. Your supervisor name, your co-supervisor name, your external, your internal, as well as the head of department of your institutions. Next page we have to provide the dedication home student or scholar is dedicating his thesis. Normally there is no fixed format for this page, and the student select whom he want or she want to dedicate this work. And next we have the acknowledgement. Normally we start the acknowledgement like I pay my gratitude to Allah Almighty, Almighty Allah, without whom there is none who can really understand and help us when we are in the deep trouble and sorrow. Almighty, thanks for our kindness, graciousness, and endowing me at this strength to complete this humble piece of research, through which I have learned how I can be useful to your creation. And after that you provide your gratitude to your supervisor, your parents, your colleague, your friend and family, and your somehow you can provide thanks to your better half as well. And next you have to provide the list of the publication from your thesis. Normally in Pakistan it is the criteria that no thesis can be submitted at a PhD level without the publication, but for the masters and MPhil level there are criterion set by the university or the department. But if you follow the rules and regulations set by the Lahore School of Accountancy and Finance, for the MPhil students you have to publish a research paper before getting your final transcript. We are not forcing for student they publish a research paper in HEC recognized journal or ISI indexing, because for the MPhil level we are not forcing student, or we are not restricting student to go for the HEC recognized journal or ISI indexing. But for the PhD you have to publish a research paper in HEC recognized journal or in ISI indexing, which HEC also accepted. And then you have to provide the list of abbreviation, how many abbreviations you have used in your thesis. You have to provide the abbreviation and the full form of the word here. So this page provides the whole list of the abbreviation, and then you provide the list of the tables. You have to give the title or description of the table, and here you provide the name, page name of where the table has been given. And then you provide the list of the figures, and here you provide the complete description of the figure, and then provide the page number of the figure. And then table of content. In the table of content you have different letters which we have already mentioned here, and all till abstract you have the page number in Romans. So keep it in mind, till abstract you have a page number in Romans, but after chapter 1, when you are starting the introduction, the page number will be start in a 1, 2, 3, so on. Okay, the chapter 1 is introduction. The introduction chapter comprises of the objectives, problem statement, research question, research hypothesis, novelty, significance of the study, and structure of the thesis. And then you have chapter 2. Chapter 2 is review of literature or literature review. Chapter 3 is historical background. If you are conducting a case study, then you provide the historical background of your case study. But if you are dealing with a cross section or panel study, you have to provide the historical review of your issue. Rather than moving toward the historical background of your case, you have to provide the historical review of your issue. And then you have a chapter 4. Chapter 4 is related to theoretical and econometric methodology, and chapter 4 comprises of conceptual link or conceptual model, theoretical link or theoretical model, mathematical model, statistical or econometric model, operational definitions, and measurement of variable, data sources, data design, sample size, sampling technique, econometric methodologies. And then you have chapter 5 results and discussion, and chapter 6 conclusion, and chapter 6 is consisted of conclusion, recommendations or policy suggestions, and limitations. And at the end you have references and appendices. These are the table of contents which are suggested by the QEC of University of Lahore. Okay, let's start our detailed discussion. Before the table of content, all the material is a set pattern which is normally available on the photocopier shop of any department, but from the abstract you have to write the things by yourself. So here is no one can help you to guide the set pattern for the abstract. But the abstract has some structure, like you have to complete your abstract between 250 to 350 words, not more than that. It is a standard size for the MSc or BS or MPhil and PhD scholars at the same time. What are the main components of abstract writing? That first you have to provide the background of study in a one sentence, in a one line. Then you provide the objectives of the study in a one line, in a one sentence, and then you provide the methodology of the study, and then results of your study, and then provide the conclusions of your study in a one line, in a one sentence, because you are bound to complete your abstract between 250 to 350 words. And then you provide the suggestions in one line and one sentence. And I think if you provide each content with a one sentence, then you will be around 300 words for the abstract. Okay, then you provide the keywords. After the abstract, you have to start your chapter 1. The chapter 1 is introduction. Introduction should contain brief background of selected topic. It must identify the importance of the study, its relevance and applicability of the results. It must clearly state the purpose of the study, rationale, without a heading at the end of introduction. Normally for the undergraduate student, you have to provide a introduction from 1.5 to 3 pages, but for the MPhil and MS student, you have to provide the introduction to 4 to 10 pages, 3 to 6 pages. But for the MPhil, for the PhD student, you have to complete your introduction in 4 to 10 pages. You can increase from 10 pages, but at least you have 4 pages for the introduction for the PhD student, and at least you have 3 pages for the MPhil or MS student. Okay, introduction chapter comprises of objectives, problem statements, research question, research hypothesis, and novelty and significance of the study, and then structure of the thesis. There are a number of supervisors who always argue that we have constructed the research hypothesis with the help of literature, or some supervisors recommend that we have to construct the research hypothesis from the theoretical or conceptual model. But wherever you construct these hypotheses, you have to provide these hypotheses in chapter 1. Okay, now we give the detailed explanation of the objective. The objectives are the statement of mention. They inform the reader clearly what the researcher plans to do in his or her work. They must identify the variable involved in research. Objective should start with an action verb and be sufficiently specific, measurable, achievable, and relevant and time bound. Normally we can call that the objective should be SMART. Broad objectives are visualized to be achieved, should be clearly outlined, and these should be itemized. And these objectives will indicate the major aspects of the study to be undertaken. So keep in mind that the objective statement, before the objective statement you have to provide a paragraph. It is not related to that, but you have to start the objective statement with the to, because every research method books recommend that the objective statement must be started by to. Then we have the problem statement. A problem statement is a concise description of an issue to be addressed or condition to be improved upon. It identifies the gap between the current state and desired state of process or product, focusing on the fact the problem statement should be designed to address the 5 W's, that who, what, when, where and why. The first condition of solving the problem is understanding the problem, which can be done by the way of a problem statement. So normally we can say that understanding the problem is a half solve the problem. So you have to clearly understand your problem. Research question. Okay, a research question is a question that a research project sets out to answer. Choosing a research question is an essential element for both quantitative and qualitative research. A good research question should be focused on a single topic, on several closely related ideas, but if it is not, you would not end up with a good thesis. If a question is too general or does not stay on one topic, you can fix it by deciding which part of the topic you want to research. A good research question is a focused, researchable, feasible, specific, complex and relevant to the degree or you can say your subject area. Normally in practice we see that the student put a number of variables, a number of issues in one question. So for the research question you have to be concise and be specific while writing a research question, so that you can find the answer of this question specifically, rather than putting so much things in your single research question. And then we have a research hypothesis, and we are talking about the research hypothesis. A hypothesis is a proposed explanation of a phenomenon. For a hypothesis to be a scientific hypothesis, the scientific method requires that one can test it. Researchers generally develop scientific hypotheses on previous observation that cannot satisfactorily be explained with the available scientific theories. A hypothesis is a statement showing an expected relationship between two or more variables. As I have highlighted that we have normally developed the research hypothesis with the help of previous study, you can say that with the help of literature view, but we have to provide the heading of the research hypothesis in introduction section. So keep in mind, while developing the research hypothesis, you have to provide one-to-one relationship between the variables. You cannot put so many variables or more than two variables in one hypothesis. If you have a number of variables, then you can provide a more hypothesis rather than one or two hypotheses. Okay, here we have the novelty or significance of the study. A significance of the study is written as a part of the introduction section of a thesis. It provides detail to the reader on how the study will contribute, such as what this study will contribute and who will be benefit from it. It also includes an explanation of the work's importance as well as its potential benefit. It is sometimes called the rationale of the study. You don't have to provide a separate heading of the rationales of the study. In the significant section you provide the rationales of the study, and normally the significance of the study is based on on the criticism of the previous study. You have to develop your idea on the basis of the previous study. So you here in the significance of the study, you have to highlight the weaknesses of the previous study, and then you can strengthen your idea. Okay, what are the benefits or advantages of the study based on statement of the problem? Your significance of the study is also highlighting the statement of the problem, and you have to provide, you can determine the specific contribution of your thesis study to the society as well as to the individual. So significance of the study is one of the more important part of the thesis. And then in introduction part, we have the last part is the structure of the thesis. Normally structure of the thesis is comprised like that. The first chapter provides the introduction, and then you have to provide the second chapter is based on literature review. Third chapter provides the historical background of the issue or case study, and then the fourth chapter deliver the theoretical and econometric methodology, and then the fifth chapter present the results and discussion of the study. And then the sixth chapter is about the conclusions, or you can say the overall finding of the study, and then policy suggestions or policy recommendations are also given in the sixth chapter. And then we start the chapter 2, which is very important, because our whole thesis is started from the literature review. So a literature review is an evaluative report of information founded in the literature related to your selected area of study. The review should describe, summarize, evaluate, and clarify this literature. It should give a theoretical case for research and help you to determine the nature of your research. Okay, while writing the literature review, you have to keep certain things in mind, that use evidence. A literature review section is in this sense just like an other academic research paper. While writing the literature review, there are some main important things which you have in your mind, like be selective. You cannot select the whole literature review. You have to be selective while writing the literature review. Use quotes carefully. Summarize and synthesize your wordings or your selected research papers. Keep your own voice. So keep in mind that while writing literature review, you can use your own voice rather than you can plagiarize the whole thing. So you focus on your own voice while writing the literature review. Use captions when paraphrasing. Follow any chronological order. If you are doing a case study, you have to follow the ascending or descending year-wise literature review. But if you are following the literature review and you have a number of issues for your thesis, then you provide the literature in issue-wise. But when you select the literature heading in issue-wise, then in a particular heading you also follow any chronological order, like you start the year in ascending or descending order. Okay, it must be keep in mind that for the undergraduate student or BSc, you can say that MSc student, you have to complete your literature review between 20 to 30 pages. But for the MPhil and MS student, you have to write the literature 30 to 50 pages. But for the PhD student, you have to write the literature between 40 to 70 pages. And the font size and the spacing has been given in your you can say that the research book which is provided normally by the department. Okay, after the literature review, we have another chapter, that is historical background. Historical background of the issue. The background of issue identifies and describe the history and the nature of a well-defined research problem with reference to the existing literature. Background information in your issue should indicate the roots of the problem being studied, its scope, and the extent to which previous studies have been successfully investigating or investigated the problem, nothing in particular where gap exists that your study attempt to address. Okay, background review refers from literature view. It places the research problem in proper context rather than thoroughly examining the relevant literature view. So keep in mind that that the historical background of the issue and the literature review is a separate thing. While talking about the literature review, you have to provide the previous studies, only previous studies about the topic or issue. But while writing the historical background of the issue or historical background of the case study, you you have to provide some political and economic condition at the same time. Okay, historical background for the undergraduate and for the MSc student is 10 to 20 pages, but for the MS or MPhil student you have to write the historical background of issue or case study in 20 to 30 pages, but for the PhD student it must be comprised of 40 to 50 pages. Okay, then we have the chapter 3. Chapter 3rd is theoretical and econometric methodology, and this chapter is comprises of conceptual framework, theoretical model, mathematical model, operational definition and measurement of variables, data source, study design, sample size, sampling techniques, and econometric methodologies. Okay, let's start the detailed discussion about the conceptual framework. Here I am highlighting that there are some supervisors who don't use conceptual framework. They are directly go towards the theoretical model or theoretical framework. So if you have a conceptual framework, then you have to strengthen this conceptual framework with some theories, and then we know that either we are using a conceptual framework or theoretical framework, we cannot measure our variable. So for the measurement of the variable, we have to move towards the mathematical model. So keep this track exactly as we have provided here. Okay, what is conceptual framework? A conceptual framework is a structure which the researchers believe can be best explain the natural progressions of the phenomenon to be studied. It is linked with the concept, empirical research, and important theories used in promoting and systemizing the knowledge backed by the researcher. The conceptual framework offers many benefits to our research. For instance, it assists the researcher to identify and constructing his or her worldview on the phenomenon to be investigated. It is the simplest way through which a researcher presents his or her asserted remedies to the problem she or he can define. It highlights the reason why a research topic is worth studying, the assumptions of a researcher, the scholars or he or she agree or disagree, and what is the conceptual ground for his or her approach. This is given by the conceptual framework. Okay, normally conceptual framework is mostly used by the researcher when existing theories are not applicable, for you can say that are sufficient in creating a firm structure of the study. So normally if we cannot find a single study related to our topic, so normally we start our ideology with the conceptual framework. Okay, then we have a theoretical framework. A theoretical framework is normally known as the blueprint or guide for a research. It is a framework based on an existing theory in a field of inquiry that is related, or you can say that reflects the hypothesis of the study. It is a blueprint that is often borrowed by the researcher to build his or her own house or research inquiry. It serves as a foundation upon which a research is constructed. Okay, the role of theoretical framework is to be normally we can say that it looked like a map or travel plan. The theoretical framework aids the researcher in finding an appropriate research approach, analytical tools and procedures for his or her inquiry. It makes research finding more meaningful and generalizable. So keep it in mind that without a theory or without a theoretical framework, no research can be conducted. So you have some theoretical model or theoretical ideology in your mind, but keep it in mind that conceptual framework and theoretical model cannot give us the measurement tool. So for the measurement of the variable, you have to rely on mathematical model. Like if we are talking about the conceptual framework, like if we say that like if we say that x causes y. So here we have the dependent variable y and independent variable x, and then we have to provide this relationship in how many theories have used this type of relationship, and then we are going to develop the mathematical model of x and y. First we have to put this conceptual model into function form. You see, we have to construct a functional form from our conceptual or theoretical model. You can write this y is equal to alpha plus beta x. So this is your mathematical model. Okay, a mathematical model is a description of a system using mathematical concept and language. Mathematical models are used in natural sciences, engineering discipline, as well as in social sciences and management sciences at the same time. A mathematical model helps to explain a system and to study the effects of different components and to make prediction about behavior. Mathematical model can take many forms, including dynamic system, differential equations, game theory models, and normally these models somehow can overlap, but we have to provide the given model involving a variety of abstract structures. So you have to provide mathematical model in a general form. Okay, in a general form, the mathematical model may include some logical methods, or you can say the logical models. Okay, after the mathematical model, we have to include an econometric model. Like we have provided the here we have provided the y is equal to alpha plus beta x. So this is our mathematical model. So keep in mind that maths provide us an exact relationship between the variables, but we are dealing with the behavioral and management sciences. So when we are talking about the econometric model, so behavioral sciences always have some deterministic trend in their model. So we have to use the econometric model like that, alpha plus beta x plus u. So by adding the error term here, we can call this specific mathematical model an econometric model. Now this is our econometric model. So this is our mathematical model and this is our econometric model. Okay, econometric models are statistical models used in econometrics. An econometric model specifies the statistical relationship that is believed to hold between the various economic and financial quantities pertaining to a particular economic and financial phenomenon. An econometric model can be derived from a deterministic economic or financial model by allowing for uncertainty, or from an economic and financial model which itself is a stochastic. However, it is also possible to use econometric model that are not tied to any specific economic or financial theories. So this is econometric model. So we normally see that students are mixed with econometric model and econometric methodology. Econometric methodology we will explain later on. Okay, operational definitions and measurement of variable. In this section we will provide. Here we have selected the variable y and x, but in this section we provide the definitions and measurement of those variables which we have selected in our econometric model, in our theoretical model, in our mathematical model. Here we provide the definitions of the variable. And operational definition is the statement of procedure the researcher is going to use in order to measure a specific variable. It explains that how variables will be measured. It is the definition of the exposure and outcome variable of interest in the context to objective in a particular study and their means of measurement and determinations. Okay, after providing the here you can also provide the other thing, like you are constructing an index for your for the measurement of your variable. So you have to provide all types of measurement of your variables here in this section. Okay, then we have the data source. Provide the relevant and authentic data source. If you are using a secondary study, you have a different data source, and if you are using if you are doing a primary study, you have a different data source. But you have, for the secondary study, you have to provide the authentic data source. Like if you are doing a study on the exchange rate like that, so you have to provide the reference or the you can say that provide the information that from where you get the exchange rate data, like IMF or World Bank. So authenticity of the data source is more important. Study design. Here in this section you provide the design of the study. A study design is a set of methods and procedures used in collecting and analyzing and measures of the variables specific in the research problem. The design of study defines the study type, like you are conducting a descriptive study, correlational study, experimental studies, or experimental review or meta-analysis study. Your study is a descriptive or longitudinal study. So here in this section you have to provide a study design. So normally our study design is a framework that has been created to find the answer to the research question. So somehow if you don't include this study design, it is not a big deal, but whenever you provide this study design, it should be properly mentioned and in this part of thesis. Okay, then you provide the sample size. A sample size, what do you mean by the sample size? A sample size is a count of that individual samples or observation in any statistical setting, such as scientific experiment or a public opinion survey. It varies for secondary and primary type of studies. Okay, although a relative straightforward concept, choice of sample size is a critical determination of for a project. Too small a sample yields unreliable results, while an overly large sample demands a good deal of time and resources. So you have to use a relevant sample size. Either you are doing a primary study, either you are doing a secondary study. So sample size is very much important for your estimation technique, or estimation methodology as well. Here we have a sampling technique. What are the sampling technique we have used for getting this sample size? Okay, there are different sampling techniques are available, and they can be subdivided into two groups, like probability sampling and non-probability sampling. While discussing about the sampling for the primary and secondary study, you use the systematic sampling, certified sampling, clustered sampling, convenience sampling, quota sampling, and judgmental or judgment sampling or snowball sampling. There are a number of sampling techniques are available for you to use the sampling technique for getting the sample size. Here we have the econometric model. Here I would like to highlight that what is the difference between the econometric model and econometric methodology. When we use the variables and the error term in the model, so this is econometric model. While talking about the econometric methodology, the methodology of econometric is the study of the range differing approaches to undertaking econometric analysis. Like you have unit root tests, regression, there are different forms of regression, diagnostic tests. All these type of things are called the econometric methodology. So keep in mind the difference between the econometric model and econometric methodology. Normally student mix up with the econometric methodology and econometric model. So while talking about the econometric methodology, you have to highlight what are the methodology you are using for your analysis. Chapter 5. Okay, this is related to the results and discussion which we have find after using this econometric methodology. Here we present the results of those variables, like describe the study results, including in this chapter we include the figures, tables and graphs related to our findings. So write the captions below the figures and the table, mention figures and table number in the text. Also include a master table at the end of the thesis. It's not necessarily or not a compulsion that you can include a master table, but somehow if supervisor like, then you can you can add a master table at the end of the thesis and end of this chapter, not on end of the thesis, end of this chapter, and provide supplementary material which include complete detail of sample or population which you have used for the analysis. And here we have a discussion part which is a part of the chapter 5 as well. Okay, discussion compares your result with the previous studies with proper reference. You have to here decide that how many studies you are accepting and how many studies you are actually rejecting. This part, okay, discussion part is for the undergraduate, or you can say that BS or MSc student is you have to provide the discussion on 2 to 5 pages, and for the MPhil or MS student you have to provide the discussion on 8 to 12 pages, not less than that will be acceptable. And for the PhD student you have to provide the discussion 20 to 30 pages. It will be exceed this is the threshold point which we are mentioning for the discussion session. So you can increase depending upon your issues which you are studying. Okay, chapter 6. Chapter 6 is comprises of conclusions. The title of the chapter 6 is conclusion, and further this chapter is comprises of conclusions, recommendations and limitations. Okay, while talking about the conclusion, conclude your result precisely and comprehensively by focusing on major outcomes. But keep in mind that you don't use the results and numbers in this part. So be concise while writing your conclusion part. Normally different universities or different supervisor requires a specific number of words for the conclusion. Okay, recommendations. Write a recommendation based on the results and conclusions. So keep in mind there are a number of scholars or students who write the recommendation or policy suggestions without any aim, and they can include all such relevant irrelevant information which they think that they impact the dependent variable, but actually they cannot they have not used those variables in their analysis. So your recommendation is totally based on your estimated results or your estimated or used variable rather than other guess like things. So it may focus on the way to improve the situation, like disease condition, prevention, policy and suggestions. Okay, here we have the limitations. This is last part of the conclusion. The limitation of the studies are those characteristics of design or methodology that impacted or influenced the application or interpretation of the results of your study. Okay, they are constrained. Normally, they are the constraint of your study, or you can say that these constraints hinder your generalizability of your study and utilization of your finding. So you have to highlight what are the expected or what are the main limitations of your study. Going towards the ending part, you have to provide the references. Include latest references by using the endnote or any other way you can use the references writing, but in the text you can use the subscript references without bracket after the full stop. But for the students of Lahore School of Accountancy and Finance, you have to follow proper APA style referencing. So we have modified this style somehow, but normally we follow the APA style referencing. Okay, note that for the MSc or you can say that for the undergraduate student, your references, minimum references will be 40. For the MS or MPhil, you have minimum references 100, and for the PhD student, you have minimum references 150. Okay, after the references, you have to provide the appendices. You have to add the tables or raw things which you have used for your final analysis. It depends upon the departmental requirement as well as supervisor requirement. But you have to provide the original data set that also depends upon the supervisor choice as well as your external supervisor choice. So it depends upon the choice of these two persons. If they prefer that you have to include the data at the end of the thesis, so you have to provide. So normally it is the practice that students have to provide the data at the end of thesis. So here we are going toward the concluding discussion that you have to provide your abstract for the MSc, or you can say the undergraduate student abstract should be 250 to 350. For MPhil is also same, and for the PhD also same. So normally we are following the international standard for writing the abstract. So so if you see that different published research paper, so the range of the abstract is normally 250 or 350. So provide the introduction. You have 1.5 to 3 pages for the introduction and 3 to 6 pages for MPhil or MS, and for PhD you have 4 to 10 pages, and for the literature review for undergraduate you have 20 to 30 pages, and for MPhil or MS students you have 30 to 50 pages, and for PhD you have 40 to 70 pages. And here you have research methodologies, theoretical methodologies or conceptual methodology or econometric methodology. So you have at least 5 to 10 pages for the MS or MPhil, and for the PhD you have 5 to 20 pages. And for the results and discussion, you have discussion like I have mentioned. Also for the conclusion, for the undergraduate student you have 100 to 200, and for the MPhil and MS student you have 100 to 300 page words, and for the PhD you have 300 at least for the conclusion. Okay, all the detailed discussion, if you want to detailed discussion about the introduction, literature review, methods, result discussion, or conclusions or limitations of the study, I will develop a separate video on each section of the thesis. So in coming days I will provide a separate video of each section of the thesis. Okay, after the completion of the thesis or external review, you have a final viva. You present your final viva in proper format and deliver in a professional language, which is the language of your degree. Okay, standing, you are standing alone in front of supervisor, examiner, peers and your friends. Everyone is ready to ask a question. Even many times supervisor also ask a critical question in your final defense. External and you, there is a detailed argument have been started between you and your external. So fight of words has been started. He or she is accepting one thing and rejecting the other thing, but you are convincing him or her, and because you have a lot of knowledge of this particular issue whom you have done a thesis, so at the end you have to win. You at least at the end you must win, because you have a lot of knowledge about your thesis, and you have gone through all the practices for writing a good thesis. Okay, at the end you get a success, you would be happy. So don't worry, thesis is not an hurdle for your degree. You have to complete your thesis with the help of your supervisor. So here I am highlighting that some of the deadlines for the thesis. Okay, technically your MS and MPhil degree is 1.6 and 2 years respectively. Okay, your second year is for your thesis, and your third year for your thesis. If you cannot complete your thesis in your second year, then you can give the extension. You can get the extension from the authorities for the third year with extra fees, and you get another extension for the fourth year with an extra fees. But after 4 years and 1 day, your registration is expired by following the HEC rule. Okay, after 4 years and 1 day, you are standing with nothing in hand. You are angry and blaming your university administration and supervisor. But keep in mind that you are more responsible for not completing your thesis. It is not your supervisor, not university administration, because you have to give a proper time to your thesis. If you cannot give proper time to your study, you cannot complete your thesis at all. So don't blame university, or you can say university administration and supervisor. You are more responsible for not completing your thesis. So you have to manage yourself for the completion of thesis. The whole discussion which I have provided here is available on the coordinator office, or you can say that coordination office. You can contact your coordinator, Mr. Fiaz Ahmed Sulari, for getting the hard copy of these structure which I have highlighted here. Okay, thank you all of you for listening this or watching this video carefully. Okay, see you with another video. Ciao.